I'm Gary, and this is Coasting with Culture. I like to combine theme park visits and riding roller coasters with various cultural experiences around the world. Previously, I arrived to the city of Santiago and spent a day exploring this fantastic city with stops at South America's tallest tower, a statue that pays tribute to the Virgin Mary, and an evening in one of the city's main squares. Next, it's time to find some coasters, starting with a few smaller parks on the outskirts of town, and then a bus ride to the Chilean coast, with hopes of finding a few more coaster credits. Searching for coasters in Lima was pretty crazy because there was, 18 different places to go to. Fortunately, here in Santiago, there's only going to be about 2, and then there's 2 places I'm going to go check out a little bit further out away from Santiago today, and so it shouldn't be quite as chaotic as going to look for coasters in Lima. However, they are a bit spread out, so this is going to be a little bit more of an effort than some of the parts of Lima. But either way, it's time to go searching for coasters. One of the big differences in seeking coasters in the Santiago area over Lima was the ability to use their subways and local trains to cover much of the distance between smaller parks, with only a short Uber ride from the last stop to the park being necessary, where Lima required Ubering or taking a taxi between each of the parks. There may have been a few transfers needed between lines, but it was far more pleasant than sitting in hour-long traffic. After taking the red line to the last stop in Los Dominicos, it was just about a 10-minute Uber ride to the town of Barnechea. This was the location of the day's first park, Mampato. Mampato is certainly a smaller park, and the selection of rides is geared more towards families with younger children, although they do have a ride that might be more for the older members of the family. While Casa del Terror looks like your run-of-the-mill portable-style dark ride, the vehicles are a bit on the creepy side. As is the case with many of the parks I head to, there was a reason for this stop: a coaster to ride. The fact that this was a wacky worm seemed to fit right in with the previous coaster stops from Peru, although this was one of the most uniquely named ones, called Happy Mountain, with the recognizable Happy Worm on the front car. In the middle of the park was one of the more unique Ferris wheels I've seen, which gave a nice overview of this family park. Mampato is a nice, smaller family park with mainly rides geared toward the kids, but they do let the big kids come and play too, so that's always nice. We had a chance to get the coaster here, so now it's time to go ahead, get back on the road, and head to park number 2 for today. After getting the coaster at Mampato, I went back to the subway for the ride from Los Dominicos to Tobalaba for a transfer to the Blue Line, taking it to the end at Plaza de Puente Alto. From the end of the subway, it was another 15-minute Uber ride to the second stop of the day, another location of Mampato. Similar to the Barnechea location, this is a park geared towards the families, but it offers a slightly larger ride collection and variety. To make park guests more comfortable, they had misters to cool off with on a hot day. Coaster-wise, there were two at this location, including their Zamperla-powered coaster, Space Mountain. It's only a smidge different than its Disney park counterparts.
To say that this thing rides just like its Disney counterparts might be a little bit of an exaggeration, possibly. This thing actually shuffles like an old wooden coaster. I've never had that experience on one of these Zamperla powered coasters before, but you know, it's always fun to get another credit.
Nearby Space Mountain was a large slide that's pretty common to amusement parks, although this one was built more uniquely with the staircase being located under the slide instead of beside it.
I thought that slide would ride a little quicker, but still fun.
The other coaster in the park was Montaña Power Dragon. Mampato is known for operating carnivals in Chile, as well as these two parks. And from what I gathered, it seems that they store some of their rides at this location. It was hard to know for sure, but this appeared that it could have potentially been another coaster, perhaps a powered one with a caterpillar theme.
That third ride that's tucked away on the side, not assembled, that's going to drive me nuts wondering what it is until somebody gets a chance to come back if it gets assembled by that point. Or perhaps there might be a way to try and get into contact with somebody later. Some research will definitely have to be done to see if there is possibly another coaster here. Well, now that I've gotten the two coasters here, it's time to move on to the next stop, which is going to be a little bit of a haul to get to because it's outside of the Santiago area.
With the two closer parks visited, I took the subway to the middle of town to catch a ride with Tourbus. With some time before departure, I grabbed a beer called Cristal from a cafe in the terminal. The bus ride to the coastal area of Chile was a great time to catch up on a quick nap, or just take in the passing scenery along the way. About 2.5 hours later, I arrived to the town of El Quisco. I chose to walk from the terminal to the potential coaster stops, but not even a block away was another potential stop for a coaster, as there was a carnival set up right next to it. It wasn't open yet, so I'd check it out on the way back to the terminal for the return trip to Santiago. There was some really nicely maintained landscaping in El Quisco, and from the vehicle and pedestrian traffic, you could tell this was a very popular spot for those wanting to enjoy some time on the Pacific coast. This popularity certainly explained the presence of multiple carnivals and smaller amusement attractions, including one by the previously mentioned Mampato. While the two Mampato parks near Santiago had more family-oriented rides, this carnival had several larger rides to appeal to the older members of the family as well. This carnival allowed for the purchase of individual ride tickets as opposed to the permanent parks, which had an admission. And like the first Mampato park, this carnival had a wacky worm-style coaster called Happy Mountain.
So the place that I had planned to come here for was open, and they had a coaster. So an excellent start to this stop. Now the thing is that there's a place that I'd seen online that may have possibly had a stop as well for a coaster, and there was the one that we saw on the way over here. So it's time to go check those out before heading back to Santiago.
Walking back in the direction of the terminal, a couple blocks back up the hill and back in the heart of town, there were several restaurants and shops. And hidden behind a section of them was a small carnival from the company Entretenciones Florida. They had a selection of family rides which included a smaller oval coaster that seemed to be an older Myler or Molina & Sons ride. The name of it? Mini Montaña.
So the random Google Maps park turns out to be a success. Another coaster earned. Now it's time to go and see if the park next to the bus station that was discovered last minute happens to have a coaster.
The company that ran this carnival was Entretenilandia, and they had several rides along with inflatables and table games like foosball. One ride I was surprised to see was a portable version of Chaos, the tilting and spinning ride that has become incredibly rare to see operating anymore. But right next to it was one more coaster for the day. A similar dragon-themed train as the previous coaster, and the same kind of layout as well.
It's always fun when you go to these places and there are credits that you don't know about, especially when they're not listed, they're not found on Google Maps, they just happen to pop up out of nowhere. It's always fun to have these nice little surprise credits come about. But now it's about time to start getting ready to head back to Santiago.
Back at the bus terminal, I did some searching on my phone that almost led to an alternative plan.
So when using Google Maps to try and figure out if this park next door to the bus station was actually listed there, I happened to find that there are two other amusement parks down the road in El Tapo, which is about 5 miles roughly from here and about 30 minutes drive. Now the thing is that that's not really a far distance. The only problem though is that the last bus leaves El Tapo at 9:30 and then it leaves here at 9:45 to get back to Santiago. If I don't make that bus, then I'm spending the night here. And so unfortunately there's just not enough time to get to El Tapo to check those two parks. Kind of disappointing because the images from Google Maps that people have submitted show coasters there. So it looks like I might be possibly missing out on some credits. A little bit of a bummer, but it means I have to come back to Chile, and that's not a bad thing.
While I had to pass on some potential additional credits, there was still one more opportunity for Chilean coasters that would come on the next day. Thank you for watching this Coasting with Culture video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button below to see future videos here on YouTube, like these ones which you may enjoy as well. Additional content can be found at coastingwithculture.com, and you can also follow Coasting with Culture on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for announcements, previews, and updates. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, take care and safe travels.